On a cold morning in downtown Seattle, a chubby young boy, in a worn-out hoodie, trembled as he stepped into the grand lobby of Phoenix Tech headquarters. In his small hands, he clutched a luxury leather wallet, clearly out of place in his world. A security guard noticed him, quickly moving forward to stop what looked like an intrusion, but just then, a man in a tailored coat arrived, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. That man had no idea, the story he was about to hear, would change his life forever. What could possibly make a homeless boy the center of attention in all of America? Stay with us until the end, because the truth behind this moment will touch your heart. Jamal Carter was 12 years old, overweight, and homeless in the cold, crowded streets of Seattle. Every morning, he woke up on a stiff cot at a temporary shelter, surrounded by strangers who rarely spoke his name. He had been abandoned as a baby, left on the steps of a fire station in South Seattle, with no note and no trace of family. Since then, his life had been a rotation of shelters, free food stations, and church basements. People often passed by Jamal without seeing him. He was just another lost kid in a hoodie too big for his small frame. His eyes were quiet, tired, always looking down, as if trying to disappear. His skin was dark, his hair always messy, and his round cheeks made him an easy target. Other boys mocked his size. They laughed when he ran, pointed fingers when he sat alone. "Fat kid," they whispered, or worse. Jamal never fought back. He just took the words, let them sink in, and moved on like he always did. He never went to school like most kids. Instead, he taught himself. He dug through old boxes behind donation centers, looking for books. Some were torn, others water-stained, but he kept every one. He read under dim lights in the shelter hallways, whispering the words out loud so they'd stick. Science books were his favorite, especially anything about computers or machines. Jamal didn't understand everything, but he believed he could learn. He believed he was meant for more. On most afternoons, he climbed the hill at Cary Park and sat quietly. From there, he could see the shining skyline of Seattle. The tall buildings, the endless windows, the blinking lights. He imagined working in one of those offices, wearing clean clothes, sitting at a desk with his own name on it. He'd imagine building things, fixing problems, designing software. Not just to escape poverty, but to prove that he mattered. That he could be more than the labels people gave him. Inside his coat pocket, Jamal always kept a small, spiral notebook. Its cover was frayed, the pages bent at the corners. But to him, it was everything. He wrote in it every day, sometimes in words, sometimes in pictures. He wrote about his dreams, his plans, and the things he couldn't say out loud. On the first page, in careful block letters, he had written, "I want to build something no one can take away." Jamal never asked anyone for help. He never begged, never shouted. He lived in silence, hoping the world might one day turn and see him. But for now, he was invisible. Just a quiet, heavy-set boy, sitting alone with a book of dreams no one knew existed. It was early morning in downtown Seattle, cold and quiet. Jamal was walking with his head down, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his worn hoodie. He had no destination, just drifting, hoping maybe someone would offer a smile, a meal, or at least not stare. As he passed the edge of a sidewalk near Pine Street, something caught his eye. It was a wallet, lying just near a fire hydrant, half hidden beneath a pile of damp leaves. He paused, unsure. It looked expensive, sleek, the kind of wallet someone important might carry. Jamal bent down, picked it up, and opened it carefully. Inside were 2 credit cards, a thick stack of cash, he counted later, nearly $20,000, and a crisp business card. The name read, Lucas Bennett, CEO, Phoenix Tech. Jamal's eyes widened. He had heard that name on the news, had seen the tall glass building with that name on it glowing over the city skyline. His heart pounded. With that much money, he could buy clean clothes, eat well for weeks, maybe even find a cheap place to sleep that didn't smell like mildew and fear. He gripped the wallet tightly, walked a few steps, then stopped. His mind was spinning, caught between hunger and honesty. That's when he remembered the soft voice of a volunteer at the shelter, a woman who once handed him a sandwich and said, "Do the right thing, even when no one is watching." He didn't know her name, but her words stuck. Jamal turned around. He looked back toward the skyline, toward the tallest building in sight, the headquarters of Phoenix Tech. He had no plan, only a decision. He was going to give it back. As he walked toward the building, his legs felt heavier with every step. He glanced at his reflection in the glass windows he passed. A chubby boy with a dirty face, hoodie stretched at the sleeves, eyes full of nerves. He kept walking, one foot in front of the other. When he reached the gate, a uniformed security guard stepped forward. The man's eyes narrowed. He looked Jamal up and down, already suspicious. "You lost?" he asked, his voice flat. Jamal shook his head slowly, reached into his hoodie, and pulled out the wallet with both hands. "I just want to return this," he said, voice barely above a whisper. As Jamal stood nervously at the gate, holding the wallet in both hands, a man stepped out from the main entrance of the building. He was tall, dressed in a dark overcoat and polished shoes. His presence turned heads. His posture was confident, his face calm but alert. This was Lucas Bennett, 45 years old, founder and CEO of Phoenix Tech. Lucas noticed the security guard and the boy immediately. His eyes dropped to the wallet in Jamal's hands. He slowed his pace, walked up, and said, "That's mine." "Where did you find it?" Jamal's hands trembled. He looked up at the man, then quickly back down. His voice was soft, unsure. "On the sidewalk. Near the fire hydrant, a few blocks back," he whispered. The words came slowly, like each one took effort. Lucas took the wallet from Jamal, his brows furrowing slightly as he opened it. He checked the contents, flipping through the cards, the bills, the ID. Everything was still there. Not a single dollar missing. He looked back at the boy, his tone more curious now. "Why didn't you take any of it?" Jamal hesitated. His fingers tightened around the straps of his hoodie. He looked away, then said quietly, "Because I didn't want you to be worried." He paused, then added, "I know what it feels like to lose something." Lucas didn't answer. He stared at the boy, his expression unreadable. In that moment, something shifted. He saw not just a poor kid, but someone who had chosen honesty when no one expected it. Someone who could have taken the easy way out, but didn't. The silence lingered. Then, without warning, Lucas said, "Come with me." His voice was firm, but not unkind. The security guard looked surprised. Jamal blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. Lucas turned toward the building. Jamal hesitated, then followed, unsure of where he was going, but knowing this was no longer an ordinary morning. Lucas led Jamal through the polished halls of Phoenix Tech. The boy walked carefully, trying not to touch anything, his shoes squeaking softly on the clean floors. Employees glanced up from their desks, surprised by the sight of a well-dressed CEO walking beside a nervous, chubby boy in a faded hoodie. They reached a cozy pantry tucked behind the main lounge. It was filled with warm lights, modern tables, and the smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread. Lucas ordered a full breakfast, eggs, pancakes, fruit, and orange juice, without asking Jamal what he liked. He simply looked at the boy and said, "You look like you could use a real meal." Jamal sat down slowly. He kept his hands folded in his lap. The chair felt too soft. The room felt too quiet. He had never eaten in a place this clean, this warm. His eyes scanned the shelves of snacks, the fridge full of drinks, the polished silverware. He didn't move until the food was placed in front of him. Lucas sat across the table. He didn't speak right away. He just watched as Jamal stared at the plate, unsure if he was really allowed to eat it. Then gently, Lucas asked, "Where do you live, Jamal?" Jamal shifted in his seat. "Near the bus station," he mumbled, "in the shelter on 3rd Avenue. He picked up the fork, then paused. "Sometimes they're full. Sometimes I sleep outside." Lucas raised his eyebrows. His voice softened. "You live alone? No parents?" Jamal shook his head, eyes still on the food. "I don't know who they are." There was silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of questions. Lucas leaned back slightly, then asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Jamal took a breath. His voice was small but clear. "I want to work with computers," he said. "Like you." Lucas didn't smile right away. He looked at Jamal, really looked at him. And for the first time that morning, he felt something deeper than surprise. He felt respect. After breakfast, Lucas stepped out of the pantry and called his assistant. His tone was calm but firm. "I need a background check," he said. "The boy's name is Jamal Carter." The assistant blinked in surprise, nodded, and hurried off. Word spread quickly across the office. People whispered behind screens and opened doors. "Who's that kid with Mr. Bennett?" someone asked. "Is he lost?" "Is he in trouble?" another replied. One man lowered his voice and asked, "Why is the boss spending time with a black kid from the street?" There were no answers, only curious stares. Lucas didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. He walked back to Jamal, who was finishing the last piece of pancake. He sat beside him again, quiet for a moment, then spoke softly, "You shouldn't go back to that shelter tonight." Jamal looked up, confused. Lucas continued, "You'll come home with me, just for now." Jamal froze. His fork stopped mid-air. He stared at Lucas, wide-eyed. You're not scared of me?" he asked, barely able to say the words. Lucas gave a small smile. "Scared," he repeated. "I see a good kid who made a hard choice when no one was watching." "That's not scary, Jamal. That's rare." Still unsure, Jamal followed Lucas through the front lobby. They stepped outside into the cold again, but this time it felt different. A black SUV was already waiting at the curb. A driver opened the back door. Lucas gestured for Jamal to get in. As the car pulled away from the office, Jamal sat close to the window. He pressed his face to the glass, staring at every tree, every stoplight, every corner shop as if seeing the city for the first time. He didn't say much. He was too busy wondering if this was all real. Lucas watched him from the other side. His arms were crossed, but his mind wasn't still. He studied the boy's eyes, the way his fingers tapped lightly on his knee. Lucas wasn't thinking like a CEO anymore. He was thinking like a man who had just met someone that reminded him what hope looked like. Maybe this wasn't just a second chance for Jamal. Maybe it was something more for both of them. The black SUV turned into a quiet, tree-lined street in Queen Anne, one of Seattle's most beautiful neighborhoods. Jamal looked out the window in awe. The houses were big, clean, with gardens and wide porches. He had never been anywhere like this. When the car stopped in front of a large white house with tall windows and brick steps, his breath caught in his chest. Lucas stepped out first. Jamal followed slowly, unsure of what to expect. The front door opened with a soft creak. Inside was a warm space, filled with soft lights, the smell of fresh wood, and silence. The ceilings were high. The floors were polished. There were paintings on the walls and a large fireplace glowing in the living room. Jamal froze near the door, gripping his backpack tightly. Lucas turned to him. "Come on," he said, "let me show you your room." Upstairs, Jamal was led into a guest room on the left. It had a real bed, a full desk, a reading lamp, shelves with books, and even a computer. A new jacket hung neatly over the chair. Jamal stepped in slowly. He looked at everything, afraid to touch it, afraid to believe it. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay on the soft mattress, staring at the ceiling. In his head, a voice repeated, "Don't get too comfortable. They always leave." He pulled the blanket higher and curled into a ball. The silence of the house felt louder than the streets ever did. The next morning, Lucas knocked on the door and introduced someone new, a private tutor named Mrs. Graham. She was gentle, with kind eyes and a calm voice. She sat Jamal down at the desk and began with the basics. Letters, numbers, memory games. Jamal struggled. He read slowly. He forgot things. But he didn't give up. He kept trying, asking questions, scribbling notes. Lucas watched from the hallway. He saw Jamal frown in frustration, then light up when he got something right. He noticed how curious the boy was, how focused he became when things finally made sense. Lucas didn't care how slow he was. What mattered was that he cared. Later that week, Lucas called a specialist. He wanted to know more about Jamal's learning style, about his brain, about what had been hidden all these years. He scheduled an IQ test. Not out of doubt, but because he saw something. A spark. And he wanted to know just how bright that spark could become. The results came in on a gray Wednesday morning. Lucas sat across from the education specialist, a quiet man with thin glasses and a sharp mind. He spoke slowly, carefully choosing each word. "Jamal has an exceptional mind," he said, "his logic and abstract reasoning are far above average. What he lacks in formal education, he makes up for in natural problem solving." Lucas leaned forward, surprised. "So you're saying, he's gifted?" The man nodded. "He's what we call an undiscovered genius." Lucas walked back to the house in silence. He stood by the doorway of Jamal's room for a long moment, then stepped inside. Jamal looked up from the notebook he was sketching in. Lucas sat down beside him and said with a grin, "You, my friend, are a genius who just hasn't been woken up yet." Jamal blinked. "Me," he said, frowning. "That's not possible." Lucas didn't argue. He handed Jamal a tablet and simply said, "Let's find out." From that day forward, Jamal's schedule changed. Every morning after breakfast, he logged into a special online platform designed by Phoenix Tech. It was filled with interactive lessons, coding puzzles, logic challenges. At first, it was hard. He made mistakes. He got frustrated. But he didn't quit. Lucas watched closely. He sat in on the sessions, offered encouragement, and tracked Jamal's progress. In less than 2 weeks, the boy had built his first simple app. He named it Shelter Finder, a tool that helped others find open beds in nearby shelters. Lucas was stunned. Seeing that spark grow brighter, Lucas decided to take it further. He arranged for Jamal to attend a weekend workshop with Phoenix Tech's interns. Jamal was shy at first, nervous about fitting in. But once he started solving problems faster than some of the college students, heads began to turn. He was given a name tag that read, "Special Guest Student." The interns started calling him the Little Coder. Jamal didn't say much, but inside, something shifted. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged. He wasn't just a boy from the street anymore. He was someone with a place, with potential, with people who believed in him. It was a sunny afternoon when Lucas took Jamal for a walk near the old district, not far from where Jamal used to sleep. The air smelled like fried food and bus fumes, the sidewalks were cracked, and the sounds of traffic mixed with distant voices. Jamal walked slowly, his eyes flicking toward every corner, every alley that once held cold nights and empty days. As they turned down a narrow street near the old shelter, a group of boys stood on the corner, laughing loud, sharing a soda. Jamal recognized them instantly. His steps faltered. They were the same boys who used to mock him, chase him away from the food lines, call him names he still remembered in his sleep. One of them looked up and smirked. "Look who it is," he said. "Got yourself a fancy coat now, huh? What happened? You win the lottery, fat boy." The others laughed, not cruelly, but sharply, like knives that had once cut deep. Jamal didn't answer. He kept walking, but slower now. His head dropped. He stared at the ground, at the laces of his new shoes, unable to meet their eyes. His hands were clenched, his breath shallow. The shame came back quickly, as if no time had passed. Lucas noticed. He stopped walking. Then, without a word, he stepped behind Jamal and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. His grip was steady, warm. Then he turned to the boys and said, in a voice that didn't need to be loud, "You don't get to decide who he is. No one does. Only he does." The boys went quiet. One of them looked down. Another shifted uncomfortably. They didn't reply. One by one, they backed away, their laughter gone, their faces unsure. Jamal stood still for a moment. Then slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes were watery, his voice low. "I thought I'd always be the one people laughed at," he whispered. Lucas didn't move his hand. He looked down at Jamal and said softly, "They only saw what's outside. I saw what's inside." And with that, they kept walking, side by side. But Jamal's steps were firmer now, and the weight he carried seemed just a little lighter. Weeks passed, and Jamal's progress continued to surprise everyone around him. Lucas believed it was time for something bigger, something that would let the world see what he already knew. So, one morning, he stood beside Jamal on the stage of a packed auditorium at the University of Washington. It was a tech conference, filled with engineers, developers, and students from across the country. Lucas took the mic and said, "Today, I want to introduce someone who reminds me what courage looks like." The crowd was polite but confused. Whispers moved through the room. "A kid," someone muttered. "Who is he?" another asked. "Why's a nobody getting the spotlight?" Jamal stepped forward. His hands were trembling. His voice shook. But he looked out at the hundreds of strangers and spoke anyway. He didn't recite big words. He didn't talk about algorithms or achievements. He told a story. "I didn't grow up with much," he said. "I used to sleep near the bus station, dig through trash for books, and wonder if I'd ever matter." He paused, took a breath, then continued. "One day, I found a wallet on the sidewalk. There was a lot of money in it. Enough to disappear. But I gave it back. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to be the kind of person who does the right thing, even when no one's watching." For a moment, the room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. And then, the entire hall rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous, not for a perfect speech, but for the honesty behind it. The next day, headlines spread fast. From the streets to the stage, one paper read, "Boy's kindness opens doors to a new life," said another. News stations replayed his speech, calling him the boy who reminded us all what character really means. Inspired by his journey, Phoenix Tech launched a new scholarship. They called it the Jamal Future Fund, a program for underprivileged youth with untapped potential. Jamal became its first recipient. Soon after, he received a letter. It was from one of the top STEM academies in the country. They offered him a place, full scholarship, with access to mentors, labs, and a future he once thought belonged to someone else. This time, he didn't hesitate. He packed his bag, hugged Lucas tight, and stepped into a life he had once only dared to imagine. Life at the STEM Academy was different from anything Jamal had ever known. The classrooms were bright, filled with ideas and quiet determination. The students were sharp, competitive, confident. At first, Jamal felt out of place. But he worked hard. He studied late. He listened more than he spoke. Slowly, his name began to stand out. One semester passed, then another. His grades rose, his confidence grew, and professors started calling him a quiet storm. But Jamal didn't just want to learn for himself. He wanted to give something back. So in his second year, he began developing an app. It was simple but powerful. It helped homeless youth find the nearest open shelter, updated in real time with maps and emergency contacts. He called it Safe Stop. The idea came from his past, from nights he spent wandering, unsure where to sleep. Now, others wouldn't have to guess. They'd have a tool, and a little hope in their pocket. Lucas followed Jamal's journey from afar. He didn't interfere. He didn't visit the campus often. But he kept every newsletter, watched every speech, and read every article that mentioned Jamal's name. He smiled at the boy's success, quietly, like a father proud from the shadows. Every school break, Jamal returned home to Lucas's house in Queen Anne. His room was exactly as he left it. The books still sat on the same shelf. The computer still waited on the desk. Nothing had changed, except Jamal. He was taller now, more certain of who he was. But when he stepped inside that house, he was still the boy who had once returned a lost wallet. One winter afternoon, Jamal dropped his bag in the hallway and walked into the kitchen where Lucas was reading. He paused, then said casually, "Hey, Dad." Lucas looked up, surprised, then simply nodded. "Welcome home, son." He didn't say much more, but Jamal noticed the way Lucas lingered in the doorway later that night. The way he checked if the blankets were warm enough. The way he left a plate of Jamal's favorite cookies on the desk without a word. There were no big gestures. No long speeches. But the bond between them had grown deeper than words. It wasn't official. It didn't need to be. It was family. Phoenix Tech was celebrating its 25th anniversary. The company's headquarters in downtown Seattle was lit up brighter than usual, its grand auditorium filled with employees, partners, and guests from across the country. The atmosphere buzzed with pride, success, and legacy. But that night, Lucas Bennett had planned something more than a celebration. He had planned a moment that would remind everyone where greatness truly begins. As the ceremony unfolded, Lucas took the stage. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. "Tonight," he said, "we honor the past 25 years. But more importantly, we celebrate the people who show us the future." Then he paused. "Please welcome our special guest, someone who changed the course of my life." From the side of the stage, Jamal walked out slowly. He was no longer a boy in a hoodie. He wore a tailored suit, his shoulders squared, his step steady. The audience applauded, but soon fell into silence as he approached the microphone. Jamal looked out at the crowd. His voice was clear, but his hands gripped the sides of the podium. "If I hadn't returned that wallet," he said, "I wouldn't be standing here today." He paused. "I was just a scared kid who had nothing. But I chose to do the right thing, not because I hoped for a reward, but because I didn't want anyone to feel the way I had felt, lost and forgotten." The room went quiet. No one moved. Some lowered their heads. Others wiped their eyes. Lucas stepped forward. Without saying a word, he opened his arms and embraced Jamal. The crowd rose to their feet. It was more than a standing ovation. It was a moment of shared humanity. Then Lucas turned to the microphone. As of tonight, he said, Jamal will serve as Phoenix Tech's official ambassador for giving. He will lead our new community program, helping kids who are where he once was. That announcement sparked thunderous applause. But it was more than a title. It was a promise. A recognition that one small act of honesty could ripple through thousands of lives. The event was broadcast across the nation. News anchors told the story. Social media exploded with clips of the speech, of the hug, of the quiet courage of a boy who once had nothing. Families watched together. Teachers played it for students. It wasn't just about a company or a donation. It was about kindness. About choosing to do good, even when no one is looking. And for a moment, America paused to feel that truth. The studio lights were warm, the cameras rolling, and the audience completely silent. It was a national morning show, and Jamal sat across from the host in a simple gray suit, calm and collected. The host smiled, then leaned in slightly and asked, "You were once just a nameless boy in the system. But today, with everything you've been through, what name do you choose for yourself?" Jamal paused. He looked down for a second, then up at the crowd. A soft smile crossed his face. "My name is Jamal Carter Bennett," he said gently, his voice steady and full of meaning. The room responded with a wave of emotion. Some clapped softly. Others wiped away quiet tears. He explained, not to impress, but to honor. "Carter was the name I carried in the shelter," he said, "but Bennett is the name I carry out of gratitude. Lucas didn't just help me. He believed in me before I believed in myself. I wanted to take his name, not because I had to, but because it felt right." The camera cut to Lucas in the front row. He sat still, eyes glistening, then slowly reached forward and took Jamal's hand. No words passed between them, only a look that said everything. It was pride, love, and something deeper, something that didn't need explaining. The host stood, unable to hide his emotion. He invited the audience to rise. And they did. One by one, the whole studio stood and clapped, not just for Jamal's name, but for the journey it represented. Jamal turned back to the camera. He took a breath. "If I could go back to that day," he said, "to the moment I found that wallet, I'd still return it." He didn't say it for applause. He said it because it was true. Not because I knew where it would lead, but because it was the right thing to do. That's who I was, even when I had nothing. That's still who I want to be. Then, Lucas stepped onto the stage. He didn't say a word. He just opened his arms, and Jamal walked into them. They stood there, embraced in front of millions. 2 generations. 2 worlds. And now, one family. Jamal's story began in silence, in shadows, where no one looked twice. A nameless boy with dark skin, a heavy frame, and no place to call home. He had nothing but a worn-out hoodie, a small notebook, and the quiet belief that doing the right thing still mattered. But step by step, choice by choice, he rewrote what people believed was possible. He showed that character is not built by comfort, but by courage. That kindness is not weakness, but strength. From the cold sidewalks of Seattle to the stage of a national broadcast, Jamal reminded us that greatness does not always come dressed in privilege. Sometimes, it wears second-hand shoes and speaks in a soft, trembling voice. We do not get to choose where our story begins. We do not choose the name we are first given, or the hand life deals us. But we can choose who we become. We can choose kindness, even when no one sees. We can choose hope, even when the world feels empty. And sometimes, a small act, like returning a lost wallet, can open a door that leads to a life no one expected. If you believe that kindness still matters, that it still has the power to change lives, share this video with someone who needs that reminder. If you've witnessed a moment like Jamal's, quiet, brave, unforgettable? Tell us in the comments. And if you want to follow more stories that bring light into the world, subscribe to our channel. Every story we tell is a seed of hope. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again on the next journey of goodness, courage, and the quiet power of doing what's right.